In early 2019, a group of scientists sat in a research center in California, staring at their screens in silence. They had been watching Antarctica for years. They knew ice. They knew how it moves, how it breathes, how it slowly surrenders to time. But what appeared on their monitors that day made no sense. Where solid ice should have been, pressed hard against ancient bedrock, there was nothing. A void. A massive hollow chamber had opened beneath one of the most dangerous glaciers on Earth. It was tall enough to swallow a skyscraper, wide enough to fit 2/3 of Manhattan inside it, and it had appeared in just 3 years. 14 billion tons of ice had vanished without anyone noticing. This glacier already has a name that sends chills through the scientific community. They call it the Doomsday Glacier, and whatever is happening beneath it could reshape coastlines around the world. But this cavity was just the beginning, because Antarctica is hiding something far stranger than anyone imagined. Beneath miles of ice lies a hidden world of rivers, lakes, volcanoes, and life forms that exist in permanent darkness. And all of it is connected to a force that could accelerate the melting beyond anything our models predicted. The wound in the ice. Thwaites Glacier flows through West Antarctica like a frozen river the size of Florida. Its ice front stretches more than 70 miles across, and in places the ice reaches over 2,000 feet thick. Every year, it dumps massive amounts of ice into the ocean. It is already one of the largest contributors to rising sea levels on the planet, and if it collapses completely, the world's oceans rise by 2 feet. For almost a decade, NASA planes had been flying over Thwaites with ice-penetrating radar, building layer after layer of data. Satellites tracked its surface from space. Scientists watched for any sign that the glacier was losing its grip on the seafloor below. They expected small gaps, thin pockets of seawater creeping beneath the ice. What they found instead was a wound. The cavity sat right at the grounding line, the critical hinge point where the glacier lifts off the bedrock and begins to float. This is the most vulnerable zone on any glacier. Weaken it, and everything behind it starts to slide toward the sea. When researchers calculated how much ice had disappeared, the number was staggering. 14 billion tons, melted away in roughly 3 years, completely hidden from view. That kind of loss should have broken off as a massive iceberg. Instead, it simply dissolved into the dark water below. The discovery changed everything scientists thought they knew about how fast glaciers can fail, and the question became obvious. How could so much ice vanish from a place that never sees sunlight, buried under more than 1,000 feet of frozen weight? The answer lies in what is moving through the darkness beneath. The invasion from below the bedrock beneath Thwaites does not slope gently toward the ocean. It tilts the wrong way, downward as you move inland, forming a deep trough that opens toward the sea like a funnel. This shape is a disaster waiting to happen. Warm seawater, carried by deep ocean currents, flows through channels carved into the seafloor. It rises against the base of the glacier and begins eating it from below. The water is not dramatically hot, just a few degrees above freezing. But at these depths, under these pressures, a few degrees is enough. Research ships mapped the seafloor in front of Thwaites and found steep ridges marking where the glacier's edge once stood. Those ridges tell a story of retreat, each one a frozen timestamp showing how far the grounding line has jumped inland since the late 1990s. But the most extraordinary discovery came from a robot named IceFin. Scientists drilled a narrow hole through hundreds of feet of ice and lowered the small submersible into the cavity below. It moved through absolute darkness, sending back the first direct images of what the underside of a dying glacier looks like. The ice was not smooth. It was carved into cracks, steps, and ridges. Narrow pathways where warm water rushes through like jets, accelerating the melt in ways no model had predicted. Some areas were melting far faster than expected. Others, strangely, were holding on. The chaos beneath the ice revealed something troubling. The glacier is not dying evenly. It is being torn apart from specific weak points, and those weak points are spreading. But Thwaites is not alone. The meltwater carving its cavity connects to something much larger, a hidden network that stretches across the entire continent. The hidden world beneath the ice. Beneath Antarctica lies a secret landscape of lakes and rivers that most people never imagine. More than 600 subglacial lakes have been mapped so far, and scientists believe thousands more remain hidden. These lakes exist in total darkness, sealed beneath miles of ice, kept liquid by the crushing pressure above and the heat rising from the earth below. Some are ancient reservoirs, barely changing over millions of years. Lake Vostok, buried beneath a Russian research station, has been sealed from the surface for at least 15 million years. It holds as much water as Lake Ontario and sits under 2.5 miles of ice. But other lakes are violently active. In 2007, satellites detected something strange happening to Cook Subglacial Lake in East Antarctica. The ice surface above it suddenly dropped by 70 feet. When researchers calculated what had happened, they realized that over 1 trillion gallons of water had drained away in a hidden flood, rushing through subglacial channels at rates matching a major surface river. That flood did not just empty the lake, it changed how the glacier above it moved. When water pressure at the base increases, ice slides faster. When it drops, everything slows. The buried flood had reached up through thousands of feet of ice and retuned the glacier's flow toward the ocean. These hidden floods are happening all across Antarctica, connecting lakes, feeding ice streams, and ultimately delivering fresh meltwater to the cavities beneath ice shelves where it mixes with warming ocean currents. And in those dark ocean cavities, something unexpected is waiting. Life in the abyss. When researchers drilled through the Ross ice shelf and lowered a camera into the black water below, they expected emptiness. Instead, they found tiny white sea anemones hanging upside down from the ice, anchored into the frozen ceiling, waving their tentacles to feed. A new species, living its entire life clinging to the underside of a glacier. On the other side of the continent, beneath nearly 3,000 feet of ice, a British team found boulders covered in sponges and strange filter feeders, surviving in total darkness on a seafloor that should have been lifeless. Even the sealed subglacial lakes harbor life. When scientists drilled into Lake Whillans, they brought up water containing thousands of species of microbes. These organisms do not need sunlight. They survive by stripping electrons from iron, sulfur, and nitrogen in the surrounding rock. Life has found a way into every hidden corner of this frozen world, and it has survived there for millions of years. But there is one more secret beneath Antarctica, one that could change everything. The fire beneath the ice. Under West Antarctica, the ground is warmer than it should be. Scientists expected cold, stable rock. What they found was a thermal anomaly, a massive zone of elevated heat rising from deep within the planet. The leading explanation is a mantle plume, a slow-rising column of hot rock pushing up from hundreds of miles below. the same geological force that powers Yellowstone and the Hawaiian volcanoes. And scattered across West Antarctica, buried under the ice, researchers have identified 138 volcanic cones. 91 of them were completely hidden until radar revealed their shapes. Most are quiet now, but even dormant volcanoes leak heat. Combined with the mantle plume and the stretched, thin crust of this ancient rift zone, they create a foundation that keeps the base of the ice sheet perpetually close to melting. The Doomsday Glacier sits directly above this hidden furnace. West Antarctica holds enough ice to raise global sea levels by over 10 feet. The cavities, lakes, volcanoes, and warming currents beneath it are not separate problems. They are one connected system, and that system is accelerating. We used to think ice sheets died slowly over millennia. Now we know they can fail in decades. The 14 billion tons that vanished beneath Thwaites was not a warning from the distant future. It was a message from right now. And somewhere beneath the ice, in the darkness we are only beginning to map, the next collapse is already taking shape.